Hi friends, welcome back to my channel and welcome to this eyeshadow video. I will discuss the 5 best and the 5 worst eyeshadow palettes of 2024. And of course, this all comes down to personal preferences. Maybe I like something you don't like at all, or vice versa. So please keep that in mind. My initial plan was to do a full ranking, but in the end, a lot of palettes are somewhere in the middle. So I thought maybe it's just more helpful if I only show you my 5 favorite palettes and my 5 least favorite palettes. I will talk about my favorites at the end of the video. First, we're gonna start with my 5 least favorite palettes. In 5th place of my least favorite eyeshadow palettes is this one from Byredo, the Desert Road eyeshadow palette. This was a summer release, and as you can see, the color story is of course very summery, but the formula is not that good. Well, not the actual formula. The formula is okay, but the color payoff, I have some issues with that. The colors you see here in the pan, they do not translate to the eyes like this. You do not get this color on your eyes. It's not as pigmented as it looks in the pan. And I already noticed that when I swatched the shades, because I really had to build up these swatches. But I thought that I could do the same thing on my eyes. So by just building up the color, that I would create a more dark look or a more intense look. But that didn't happen. These are not very pigmented shades. That isn't a bad thing, because I know that a lot of you like a sheer wash of color, but these shades in this palette, they are just too light, too soft. You hardly see them on your eyes. And I know that that was Byredo's intention with this palette. It's meant to be used as a sheer wash of color. This is not a palette for intense looks. So therefore, I can't say that this is a bad palette. Not at all. It does what Byredo says it should do. Just a sheer wash of color on your lids. So that's fine. It's a personal preference thing. This is too light in tone for me, too soft. I hardly see the shades on my eyes. So there is nothing wrong with this palette. It's just that it did not meet my expectations. In 4th place, a quad from Tom Ford. It's the iconic Smoke eyeshadow palette. And I know that a lot of you thought that this was a spring release, but it wasn't. No, this one got released in February, but it was a winter palette. Tom Ford announced this as a winter palette. Well, I think that February is a little bit late to launch a winter palette, so I found that a little bit weird. But that's not the reason that this is in 4th place. No, the reason this palette is not a favorite of mine has everything to do with the lack of variety with this palette. I know it's a quad, and of course your options for different kind of looks are limited with a quad. That's always the case. But with this, it's very, very limited. You can only do a smoky eye with this one. Nothing more, nothing less. And when you pay over $90 or 90 euros for a palette, I at least expect a little bit more than that. The formula, the quality, pigmentation, color payoff, it's all fine. So I have no complaints about that whatsoever. It's just that this lacks variety. And in 3rd place, there's another Tom Ford quad. It's this one. It's called Amber Bronze. This one got released together with the iconic Smoke eyeshadow palette. And this is in 3rd place for the exact same reason as the previous one, the iconic Smoke palette. It lacks variety. I can only do a dark reddish brown look with this quad. And of course, I know it's supposed to be used to create a dark, smoky, reddish look. So I fully get that. But just like with the iconic Smoke palette, I have quads from Tom Ford that give me more options than just one type of look. So I really miss that in these winter releases, not only this Amber Bronze palette, but also in the iconic Smoke palette. I have to admit that Tom Ford did some better releases later on in 2024, especially the metallic mauve eyeshadow palette. I really liked that one. And also the one that came out for the holidays, I think it was called Black Diamond, if I'm not mistaken. That one was great. I loved that holiday palette. But this Amber Bronze palette, it's just not it for me. You can also see that some of these shades, like this one, look what happened. Look what happened. It just fell out. Oh my God, let me get that back in. See, this shade just fell out of the pan. Well, yeah, I think it's time to declutter this one. Up next in second place, and I don't think this is gonna be a surprise for you, this fall quad from Chanel. I don't like this palette. No. Maybe you've watched my review of the Chanel fall collection. It was pretty clear in that review that I'm not a big fan of this eyeshadow quad. And even after reviewing this fall collection from Chanel, I did some more looks with this palette. I really tried to make this work for me, but it's just not gonna happen. This is not my palette. I do not like the fact that this is a all matte palette that you only get for matte shades. And I do not like the curation of colors. I do not like the combination of the purple lavender with that mossy green and yellow. Doesn't look good on me. It's too much of a color blocking scenario and I just do not like that. In first place, two palettes. Two palettes from one brand. These two palettes, they got launched together, so I both put them in first place. I really can't say anything good about these palettes. I'm talking about these two from Huda Beauty, the Creamy Obsessions. No. These are definitely just the worst palettes of 2024. Please don't tell me you like them. It's impossible. These palettes only contain creamy shades. Well, that's pretty obvious. They are called the Creamy Obsessions. I will show you the inside of both of my palettes. This is Grège. Yes, this is Grège. And this one is called Natural Brown. So we have Grège, we have Natural Brown. And these two color stories are actually very pretty. I like a cool toned and a warm toned neutral color story. But the formula is just not good. I really liked the creaminess of these creamy shades, but I also find them a little bit too greasy. And what I truly dislike about this formula is that the colors fade during the day in like no time. Like after a few hours of wear, I think it was 3, maybe 4 hours of wear, I could see the first creasing and I could see that the colors were fading. And by the end of the day, there was hardly any color left on my eyes, on my eyelids. So that's one thing I really disliked about these palettes. And second, and you can see that here's a pan. I hit pan with this one. And also in the other palette, I will show you. I've hit pan here and also with this shade here. And that didn't happen because I used them so much. No, that happened after the second use. Yes, I think it was the second use. Maybe the third, but I think it was the second use. And I mean, come on, it's insane that you hit pan after the second or third use. That's just that's unbelievable. Come on, that should not happen. No. That should not happen. My overall experience with these, it was just a total disaster. I didn't like how I had to apply them. They didn't sit very well. The shades were greasy, the color faded in no time. This is just not a very good formula. It's actually just a very bad formula. So I am sorry, Huda Beauty. Please do not bring out more creamy obsessions, because you do not want to disappoint more people. These are a huge fail for me, and in my opinion, the worst palettes of 2024. Now it's time for my 5 favorite eyeshadow palettes of 2024. In my opinion, the 5 best eyeshadows of this year. And in 5th place, this one from Glaminatrix. It's the Barely Basic eyeshadow palette. And the reason I put this one in my top 5 is mainly because of the beautiful shimmer shades. I absolutely love the shimmers in this palette. In my opinion, the most beautiful shimmers of 2024. I also really like the color story. These shades are so perfect for fall. Absolutely stunning. Formula wise, great. The mattes, they apply and they blend so effortlessly. And the shimmers are so easy to work with. I really enjoy this palette. I think Glaminatrix did an excellent job with this one. It's an indie brand. It's from Australia, if I'm not mistaken, but they ship worldwide. I highly recommend the Barely Basic palette. In 4th place, Dior Backstage Smoky Essentials. I love this palette. This is a very well curated color story with some beautiful, unexpected shades in it. The beautiful rosy tones combined with the taupey shades, the black and that silver, it's just stunning. This looks so beautiful on the eyes. I really have nothing bad to say about this palette. I like the formula, the pigmentation is good, the color payoff is good, the shades are very easy to apply, easy to use. You can go for a very simple everyday look, but you can also do a dark smoky look with this palette. So a lot of options, a lot of variety with this palette. I really like that. I love that there are some lighter shades, some mid-tone shades and some deeper shades in this palette. So you can really create a lot of dimension. I love that. There's also a variety of finishes. We have matte shades, there are metallics, there are satin shades. Dior says that this palette also contains shimmer shades, but I don't see them. I have to admit, I don't see the shimmer shades. The shimmer shades look a lot like the satin shades. I think those are very similar. That's my only complaint. I really like the Smoky Essentials, and I think that this is a must-have. Up next is this quad from Chanel. It's the Eclat de Nuit eyeshadow palette. And this one got released in the early beginning of this year, at the beginning of January of 2024. And this is Chanel's new take on the smoky eye. And I absolutely love this. So when we have a closer look at this palette, you can see that we have 2 brown shades. One is slightly lighter in tone and the other one is a mid-tone brown. And then we have, of course, that dark matte, that dark black matte shade. and the sparkly shade, that shimmer shade. It's a little bit hard to describe the exact color of this shade. It's a silvery champagne green shade. I know that sounds a bit silly, but that is what I see when I look at this shade. I think this shade is very, very special. I also love the fact that Chanel did this new take on the smoky eye. We usually see very cool tones when we're creating a smoky eye, usually black, gray, some silver tones. And this is much more wearable. Sometimes a smoky eye can be very dark, harsh on the face, but with this one it's way more subtle, basically because of those brown shades. So if you like to wear a smoky look but you don't want it to be too heavy, then certainly check out this palette. And in second place, I don't think this will be a surprise because I have talked about this palette a lot. I've raved about this palette a lot. It's the Viseart Sirenuse eyeshadow palette. And this one got released just a few weeks ago. It's a typical winter color story. I really like the story behind this palette and the inspiration that Viseart got to create this palette. I love the color curation of this palette. It's thought out so well. It's absolutely wonderful. And furthermore, the formula of the Viseart eyeshadows is just incredible. It's so good. The mattes are very good. They apply and blend effortlessly. They are a little bit powdery, but I guess that's also the reason they apply and blend so well. Also the metallics in this palette, wonderful, and even more the duochrome shades. This one up here and this one here. I love those duochromes. I do not have duochromes like these in my collection. They are absolutely stunning. This palette just has it all for me. The formula is good. The color story is so well thought out. I cannot think of anything bad. This is one of my favorite palettes of 2024. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for my favorite palette of 2024. It can be only one palette. From the very first time I saw it, I touched the shades for the first time, I just knew that this was going to be my favorite. I just knew it instantly. It's the Byredo Mineralscapes eyeshadow palette. This is, in my opinion, the best palette of 2024. I think this is fantastic. I think this is phenomenal. I love this palette. The color story is inspired by the summer in Sweden. You can see on the front of the packaging the different minerals, and all these shades can be found in the palette. It's overly cool toned, but there are a few warmer tones and some neutral tones in this palette too. Most of these shades have a satin or metallic finish, but there are some mattes in this palette as well. And what I find so special about this palette and about the shades is that they all have a little bit of a silvery sheen to them. And that silver sheen is very subtle, so it's not very obvious. You really have to take a good look at the shades to see that silvery sheen, and it's beautiful. It's absolutely stunning. And I'm fully aware of the fact that this is definitely not everyone's favorite. I have watched some reviews from other creators. I did that recently. And what I noticed is that not everyone understands how to use this palette correctly. Byredo is very clear about it. They recommend applying the shades with your fingertips. But I noticed that a lot of creators just use only brushes. And with some of the shades, brush application works absolutely fine. But with other shades, it's just not the best option. I think that some of the content creators, the reviewers, missed that memo, I guess. Or maybe they just start using a eyeshadow palette without reading any information about it. I don't know. But Byredo is very clear about this. They recommend using the fingertips. So maybe you have this palette in your drawer and you think it's not working for me. Please start using your fingertips. I'm not sure if I can really explain my love for this palette. I think it's the color story that I absolutely adore. This was love at first sight, but also the formula is incredible. All shades in this palette are so silky soft and smooth. I just love this. Mineralscapes was a limited edition palette, so I don't think it's available anymore, but if I find it somewhere, I will link it down below in the description box. And with this ranking, 2024 comes to an end. I wish you all the best for the new year 2025. Let's hope for some great eyeshadow releases. I hope to see you soon. Bye bye!